Hi guys, so today's video is going to be my July TBR. I'm really excited because many of you know that my life has kind of been flipped upside down with my dad's health being not amazing, and I have moved in with him and I've kind of become his caretaker, and my schedule, I just feel like it's been kind of difficult to figure out, especially because things with him are not the same from day to day. But I have been on a reading streak. I feel like I've finally found moments where I can read, and so now making a TBR doesn't feel like, oh, these are books I want to read but like probably won't get around to. Now it actually feels like these are books that I'm pumped to read. I can't wait to pick them up, and I'm gonna pick them up. The first book then on my July TBR would be Chandler Ascends, and this is an adult fantasy story that I have never heard anyone else on BookTube talk about, and I really don't know a ton about it. I've read the back of the book, of course, but it kind of has a Dante's Inferno vibe to it, where something happens and then this character has to go through this place to try and get this person back, save them, and that doesn't sound like the most unique premise, but it's one of those, I think, hidden gems, because when people talk about underrated books, the comment section always for fantasy talks about this book. And you guys, I've never heard any of you say anything negative about it. I've just heard people say, this book, why is nobody talking about this book? This is one of the best books I've read. And same goes with its sequels. A lot of people say the sequels are absolutely phenomenal. So I am hoping that you guys are not lying to me, because I really want it to be really good. Also, I just feel like this cover is really interesting. Is this not a really interesting cover to you guys? I'm hiding the fact that the sticker from my used bookstore is still there. You know what, I'm gonna put up on the screen. I was about to say, go look up what the whole series looks like, but that's lazy. I'll just put it up for you guys. I just feel like the covers look really cool too, and kind of absurdist, abstract sort of artwork on the covers, which I'm assuming is kind of indicative of the feel of the story. I don't know, I'm excited. Sticking with adult fantasy, we have Foundry Side. I've heard amazing things about this, and this one, unlike Chandler Ascends, this one I have heard a lot of people on BookTube talk about, and I've heard really good things about it. I've heard the magic system is really interesting. It, from what I've gathered, is essentially where people have the ability to kind of hack an object's code. Every object has a code, and then if you can hack into it, then you can kind of manipulate objects, which I think sounds really cool. Our main character is somebody who has the ability to do this very well. This was on as an option for the You Choose My TBR under a certain category. I had a bunch of different categories. One of them was adult fantasy that is either written by a lady or it's about a main character who's a lady, and then I had the opposite with young adult with fellas. And so this one actually was not the winner. The winner was The Bear and the Nightingale, but I thought The Bear and the Nightingale would be better suited for colder weather because it's very hot where I live, and it just feels like it wouldn't really go. And for some reason this one screams to me almost like action movie vibes, which that feels very summery, and I want to read all the books that I asked you guys to vote on, so I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and read both. Speaking of the You Choose My TBR, this one was the winner for its category, and that would be Slay. This is a story that follows a young girl who secretly is a video game developer, and it's for a game that has it's gained a lot of traction within the Black community. A lot of people feel that this is a place they can come and enjoy this awesome video game and not feel attacked, since sometimes the video game community can be not the nicest. There's something that happens that in real life, there's some kind of thing that occurs where people get in a fight and then something violent happens. And now this game that's kind of been a not really well-known thing is gaining awareness nationally, and it's being seen as anti-white and discriminating against people, things like that. And this girl who's just always loved this little secret of hers, and she loves this game, is now somebody's trying to sue her. I love video games so much, and I have a feeling that some of the things that I'm going to see in this book are going to be, unfortunately, relatable. I have heard really good things about this though. I picked it up, and when I got it, I hadn't really heard anyone talk about it, and then all of a sudden, as soon as I got it, I've been seeing everybody say that it's absolutely amazing. So I'm really excited about that, because the premise is one where it could just be like pretty good, or it can be really good. I don't know, we'll see. But really quick, since I talked about the cover of Chandler Ascends, Jenny from This Story Ain't Over. They had a picture of this book without its sleeve on it on their Instagram, and I was like, what? I love when you take the sleeve off of a book and you don't even realize that there's something so cool or beautiful underneath. And look how pretty. My dear friend Jashana from Jashana C, she has like a hot pink TBR cart, and she loves pink. And I just feel like this was made for her. Next up, we have Sailor Moon. I'm so excited for this. Sailor Moon was my jam when I was a kid. I loved it. Little me loved it so much, and I especially loved Sailor Jupiter. She was my favorite. I didn't like Sailor Mars. Now watching it back as an adult with my husband's always like, but Sailor Mars is awesome. And I'm like, no, Sailor Mars is mean. I'm so excited to actually read the manga because I've never read it. And I'm sure that my nostalgia is going to give me nostalgia goggles, and I'm going to like it no matter what. And I don't even care. This is the buddy read for July. And if you are wanting to participate in that, that will be over on Byzans, who is sponsoring this video. Byzans is a buddy reading app, and it's kind of like if you took Goodreads and you basically just made it about books you want to read and then buddy reading. That's what this is. I am going to actually be hopping on over there at a very specific time in July for coordinating with the buddy read. So on Byzans, they have want to read, currently reading, and then read, and they have different spots where it can be like an ongoing chat, or if you want to discuss very specific spoilers, you can be like chapter, chapter 6 or something like that. And then you can chat about that, and people will only see it if they click on it. So it's a really good way to buddy read and not worry about being spoiled or anything like that. But for those of you who want to read Sailor Moon also, I'm going to have a certain day where we all kind of switch from want to read to currently reading. I'll have the details for that in the description bar down below. I'm so excited to read Sailor Moon. And also, I want to know, for those of you who are secret Sailor Moon fans also, who's your favorite sailor? Next up, we have Malice by John Gwynne, and this is a chunky one. But I'm really hoping that I'm going to have the time to pick this up because I have had this one and the next two sitting on my shelf for so long because I got them at my local used bookstore, which my local used bookstore is one of those things where, when I finish a book, if I don't love it, or if I'm like, oh, I want a different edition, whatever, I take it in, they give you store credit, and then you're like, well, let's go look around. And then I find stuff and I can get it essentially, for free with the store credit. And then I end up always having all these unread books on my shelf. And this particular one, I saw this and the next two all together, all in nice condition, and I was like, well, these sound good. I'm gonna get all three of them, even though I have told myself time and time again, only get the first one, because if you don't like it, then you're stuck with these other ones. You're gonna have to take them all in. What a waste. Somebody else could have read and enjoyed them. I never listened to myself, and I have all three of these, and I need to finally read it, especially because all of you have been getting on me, because you see it on my shelf, and you're like, hey, have you read Malice yet? When are you gonna read Malice? And you know what? I deserve it. I know that this is a multiple point of view fantasy story, adult fantasy specifically, and it is, this isn't a really random thing to state, but it's published by Orbit, and I have found, for some reason, there's like a tone in Orbit books where I'll be reading it and I'm like, is this published by Orbit? I just feel like I can tell when something is published by Orbit, and not always my favorite things. So they did give me Witcher, but that was a translation, so I don't know if that counts. But I'm kind of nervous. Is that really stupid? Have you guys noticed that you tend to like books by certain publishers more? Anyway, I've heard good things though. I've heard really good things about this. And if you guys are interested in finding a booktuber who pretty much just reads adult fantasy, check out Alex Nieves. I saw that he was enjoying this, and so that makes me even more excited to read it. Next up, this is a story that I had wanted to read last quarter. I didn't get around to it, so I just need to pick it up. And that would be Dry. You can tell I'm holding it, which is this sort of dystopian story where I believe California is running out of water, and then now people are like, oh shoot, I'm thirsty, what am I gonna do? And that just seems very fitting. I live in Arizona. For those of you that don't live in the US, or you live in the US and you've just never been to Arizona, it's so hot here. And so I just feel like it's kind of a good thing probably that I didn't pick it up the last quarter, because this quarter I'm going to be dying every time I step outside. I don't think people really understand. And I hate to use that phrase, because that anytime somebody's like, oh, you just don't understand, I'm like, excuse me, go ahead, please tell me what I don't understand. But legitimately, it is so hot here. Like the highs it's actually been pretty mild. And mild means like 110 for the high instead of 120. But it gets so hot here. It gets so hot. It's like when you're cooking and you open, it's like when you open the oven, you get that hot, dry air that just hits you. That's what it's like stepping outside. You get in your car, you go to put your seatbelt on, the seatbelt like burns you, and you're like, I'll wear shorts to stay cool, but then you sit and the seat's really hot. It sucks. Anyway, all that complaining to say, I think this will be very fitting to read this next month. I have a few more books that realistically I'm probably not going to get to, and I've kind of thought about structuring my TBR where I'm like, these are the books that are high priority, and then these are the ones that if I read all of those, or if I'm not liking it and I want to DNF something and replace it, here's like my TBR option B. So I'm gonna let you know my option B books, and the first one would be A Song of Race and Ruin. I do have every intention of picking this up soon. It's just I haven't gotten my copy yet, and it's one that I'm going to read. I just don't know if I'm going to be reading it in July, but it's African-inspired young adult fantasy, and I've been hearing really good things from people who have already picked it up, so hopefully I get my copy soon. Also, I'm hoping to read Unravel the Dusk soon, which is the sequel to Spin the Dawn. I very much enjoyed that story. I wouldn't say it's an absolute new favorite. It just knocked my socks off or anything like that. But I liked it. I liked it. It was one of those stories where I'm like, oh, that was good. And I'm like kind of sad, but also like kind of hopeful. And so I'm excited about the sequel. That honestly should be it. I should stop naming books because I know I'm not going to be able to read all of these, but I passed this book and I was like, I want to read that too. And that would be House of Dragons. This is a newer release that I haven't heard a ton of people talk about, but my friend Jade from Bedtime Bookworm, I'll have her link down below. She's delightful. She reads a variety of genres, but she read this and liked it quite a bit. So I mean, it sounds really good. It's kind of, from what I've heard, it's a little bit, everybody compares everything to Game of Thrones now. Everything's like, this is the new Game of Thrones. This is the African Game of Thrones. This is the young adult Game of Thrones. Everything is the new Game of Thrones. And this I actually think is supposedly like kind of like the young adult Game of Thrones. So I'm hoping to get around to this one soon. That's it though for my July option A and option B TBRs. And let me know what you're going to be hoping to pick up this next month. Are you going to be picking up any of these? Are you going to be reading Sailor Moon with me? I'm so excited to read it. I'll have Byzans linked down below, as well as all the channels that I mentioned. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later.